Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show.
Welcome to Consulting Leaders Podcast, a place where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your own practice or learn the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, John Degnan. Join me as we talk with our best consultants in their niche. Today, we welcome Kat Rippy. Hey, Kat.
Hey, John. How's it going?
It's going great. It's great to have you here. You're the CEO of Energize Leadership. You advise CEOs and executive teams on how to lead through growth, transition, and reinvention, specializing in aligning leadership, strategy, execution to create measurable business outcomes. In this episode, what we're going to do is we're going to explore how consultants can move beyond advice and become true strategic partners in high-stakes leadership decisions. Kat, we're very excited to have you here, and we're fascinated with you. Can you tell us more about yourself?
Sure. I'm Kat Rippy, and I've been running Energize Leadership for technically over 20 years, kind of in and out of a lot of different business opportunities as well. Inside, outside consulting. Spent the majority of my career in outside consulting. It was something I knew I wanted to do from a really young age. And I feel like for me, the biggest difference I can make is working with a lot of different kinds of companies. You get a lot of exposure to more insight, more of what's really going on in the world, what's working, what's not working, and that kind of helps bring the best to my clients. And so that's the career I've kind of carved out for myself. And I love the work that I do. I have kind of a big picture lens, I guess, if you will, while also really being able to go deep and work with individuals. So the combination of working with individuals, but through the greater system and kind of really looking at how to get a business to work really well through the people is my passion. So I love what I do.
Getting personal with it.
Yes, exactly.
I read that you love horses.
Yes, I do. It's funny. I'm not a rider.
Okay.
I don't have horses.
Okay.
But I love animals. I'm an animal person. And I had an experience probably about 10 to 12 years ago with equine coaching with my team, where I had kind of stumbled across some consultants that were doing work with horses and teams, brought my team out there, and it was a really profound experience. And so I love bringing leaders and their teams out to work with horses on a ranch. I mean, you're getting out of the environment, you're getting into the outdoor space, right? So it's a whole unique environment, but you're also working with horses in a way that humans, it just kind of unlocks what we can't unlock for ourselves with our thinking brain and our verbal language. There's such a different kind of energy that comes from horses and an ability to kind of get what you need from them and be able to process that in a way that really moves teams forward really quickly. I always say you get a whole year out of coaching. You get a whole year of coaching out of 10 minutes with a horse.
Wow.
Very profound.
That's interesting. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So you get out of college. What got you into consulting at the beginning?
Well, actually, it was my very first semester of college. I went in undecided, which is very uncommon. I took a communication class, and one of the middle chapters, so like the middle of the first semester, we were studying org behavior. And I really knew right then that that's what I wanted to pursue. It wasn't the easiest thing to pursue back then. You can go big firm consulting. There wasn't a lot of kind of org development inside companies, unless they were really, really big. And even then it was more connected to HR. So it was a little bit of a Wild West in terms of carving a path, but I did. And I did go back to graduate school to get a master's degree in organizational psychology. So that was very helpful. And as part of that, I had an internship at a government agency, actually. I had to be supervised by somebody who had a PhD in organizational psychology of some sort. And so I found a person in a government agency, and I worked there. It ended up working there for almost 7 years, which was not a goal of mine to work in a government agency, but they didn't have access to what I new at all, right? Like they didn't have org development people on staff. They didn't really even know how to think about efficiencies and humans in kind of that combo way. And so one of the departments I was working with had a consultant come in named Bob, literally Bob, to do their strategic plan. And Bob fell asleep on the job. And so they tapped me and they said, "Can you help us finish this thing?" And I said, "Sure." And we did. We finished it, and I loved it. And so strategic planning has always been a really big part of what I do. From there, that led into a lot of performance management, big, large, systemic performance management solutions, as well as leadership development programs. And so it was a really great way to begin a career, I think, kind of combining all of those different factors for a giant county. And then from there, I knew I always wanted to be an external consultant. So from there, I went into some firms and did some external consulting through a firm. Eventually, I always had clients on my own, but I eventually just kind of really took that into my own business and decided to kind of really build our own model, have my own team, and kind of go in a more organized fashion to solve systemic problems in an organized fashion for companies.
Speaking about problems, what problems are you solving today?
Well, in a lot of ways, they're the same problems we've always been solving.
Okay.
I always say it's a new crisis or a new drama or a new whatever evolution of business in the world, right? Today we have AI. In the past, we've had different technology come about, and there's a recession here and there, right? So there's COVID. But whatever the crisis, it's always really the same. It's people having to work together to accomplish goals. It's a challenging situation. So I always look at the combination of the two and kind of help, whether it's leaders that I'm working with or whether it's really tackling kind of a business operational problem, really looking at both angles. Is the problem a people problem or is it an operational problem? Process, design, something like that. And it's usually a combination of the two, but there is some cause and effect there. If there's a people problem, it's probably systemic. It's coming from operations in some way. And if there's an operations problem, it's probably starting with people, right? And so how do we get those two really working in synergy? It starts with really getting clear. Most individuals and teams don't take the time to take a step back and really reflect on what's working, what's not working. That is a hard thing to make time for. We're so busy in our work. So I think dealing with it, I think the biggest challenge is, where do we start? How do we make the time when we don't have the time? So I think that's one of the biggest challenges, especially for really since COVID, probably the last 3-4 years, the warp speed of work, the intensity for everyone and what they have on their plate, and not being able to take time to connect with humans, to not be able to reflect and take a big step back. So it's kind of slowing things down in order to tackle strengthening the foundation, whatever that may be. And it's usually multiple things. So that's one of the things I'm really big on right now, especially with AI, is we're putting all this investment, all this energy, all this time, all of this resource into thinking about this big thing that's going to change everything. But we can't keep adding things to stuff that's not already foundationally strong, right? So we have to take a moment to really take a look at what is working and what's not working before we can add to that. So it's creating the time and the space and having a process for people to really go through reflecting and building to move forward in a stronger way.
Who are your ideal clients?
Well, I hate to say it, but we really are industry agnostic. So we don't have industries that we pursue technically in any kind of fashion. But I would say our sweet spot is really kind of the mid-market businesses. They're not big enough to have a lot of internal support built into how they do things, but they're also growing still and probably don't have the strongest foundation in a lot of different ways. And, things just kind of get messier and messier as you grow. So really digging in where they're trying to grow, or they're really stuck. Something's sticking and not working. Or more and more now, there's some kind of really big leadership transition, whether it's a CEO or maybe many of the senior level leaders are exiting sometime soon, and they really need to kind of they need to get it together in order to have a good plan for moving forward and staying sustainable beyond that. A lot of times that's a sell. It's really resettling the business after that departure, and having to look forward at that a good 3 to 5 years in advance and kind of build a good strategy for going through that transition is critical, and it's coming out for more and more organizations right now.
And how do these CEOs find you from a marketing perspective? What's worked best for you in the past when attracting the right client for you?
So the majority of our business is referral from clients more than anything else. That is great because it's really kind of the easiest sale to make, right? You want them, the easiest sales are when people know you and they trust you, or they can advocate on your behalf that they know you and they trust you. So those work really well. It's a high close rate. It's an easier selling process. We don't have to go through the hoops and ladders that you normally have to go through. We also don't have to, well, a lot of times we are competing with other consultants that are known, liked, and trusted. So that's a thing. I think really strengthening that relationship to the point where you're the easy choice is always a really big effort that we have to make. But at the end of the day, we're looking to grow beyond our own referral networks at this point in time. And so I think that showing up out there in a way where your expertise is seen, you're marketable as a bigger business beyond your boundaries, that's a tricky thing, that kind of scaling place, which we help businesses go through that. Although we're not marketing experts, so that's where we need our own help with that. Expanding beyond our own base
Sure.
is kind of the tricky part right now.
Sure. Podcasting is taking the world by storm. Have you considered that as a marketing tool?
Yeah, definitely. We've done some podcasting in the past, and I think showing up on podcasts is a really good way to expand, obviously beyond your own network. Starting a podcast or having podcast, I look at that more as branding, opportunity to kind of showcase what you do, what your knowledge is, enable people to really get to know you in a way and see, would this person fit with me? Do I like what they have to say? Am I on board with their opinions and their expertise and all of that? But I would say that it's a long game, right? It's a lot of exposure over time, and that then turns into
Absolutely
sales. But I don't see it as a quick pipeline.
No, I think that's an interesting perspective for sure. And when you're dealing with CEOs and boards, how do you move from an initial conversion in the conversation to a committed advisory engagement?
Yeah, that's a great question. So because most of our leads are really warm, that's not a super tricky thing for us. It's often, sometimes it's being called in to do a presentation on the approach or some kind of interaction that helps them to get to know how we would work with them and think through that contracting process up front before there's a proposal put into play. Ideally, that's the case. So I really do try to ask for getting in connection with them in some way, shape, or form, whether it's let's go out to lunch and meet outside of the office, or let's come in and actually talk about some of your challenges. The more I can get them talking about what their problems are, what their preferences are for how to go about that, we do a really good job of meeting them where they're at and making sure that we're not ruffling feathers. I think that's a really big concern sometimes with bringing in consultants, is this big foreign entity is coming in and they've got their own marching orders or their own way of doing things, and you've got two systems side by side, and we really like to mesh with them. So how do you like to involve your stakeholders, especially when it comes to like a board, for example? That relationship between a CEO and their board is really delicate, and we like to make sure that we carry that with finesse. So the more upfront conversations we can have about that kind of thing, the better they get to know how we're going to work with them, and they get that feeling of safety at the same time as, okay, you know what you're doing. And we can see that we can just kind of work with you right through our system. I think where things go off track is when it's just straight to a proposal and there's no real human.
Sure.
Or there's just an interaction with one human,
Sure.
right? Even if it's the CEO, if it's just one human, yeah, it's yeah. And I think it's easy as a consultant to kind of go right there. Like if somebody's asking you for a proposal, it's easy to be like, yeah, I'll give you a proposal, right?
Sure.
That's what I want, is to give you a proposal. But at the end of the day, if it's just a proposal, you're not able to, it's almost like you don't have the nonverbal language, right? You're not able to read them and see what are they thinking, what are they really needing, what are their questions, where are they stuck. And so kind of getting to that nuance before there's a proposal, so that the proposal is formal, but it's literally a formality. Like the sell has already been made and the proposal is a formality. That's really how we try to work with our clients.
And once you hook them and you're working on retaining them, how do you compound the relationship?
Yeah, that's tricky. I find that to be really tricky. We talk about this a lot, and it's easy to get everybody to agree. It's harder to get the follow through there. If we have made things really work well, right? Like we've worked with them, we've accomplished our goals, if we've scoped that out really well, and we know we've gotten to the end point in a way that everybody's really happy, it's easy to think, well, we don't really need the consultant anymore, right? We're good to go on our own. And ideally, you kind of want them to get to that point. At least that's our goal, is we don't want to be your crutch. We don't want you to need us. But the reality is we're working with humans and we're working with systems, and there's always changing and shifting, and just the dynamics of the day are always different. And so you need to have your consultant read in, or you're gonna spend more money in the end bringing them back in or trying somebody new or whatever, right? And so the closer that relationship is, and the more we work with a variety of leaders in the organization, the more we're part of the team, even though we're external, the easier that is, because we do build in retainer-based mechanisms, right, to keep those check-ins going, to keep the whether it's different meeting points that were established kind of as part of the rhythm. We also have a lot of variety of solutions. So we do a lot of organization-wide coaching. So we're kind of keeping our ears to the grindstone in terms of how things are going. So we can see when things are off a little bit, like, ooh, we're hearing some things over here, right? Maybe it's time for another check-in. And we also, like if for a strategic plan, for example, we try to come back every year and facilitate that process of renewing and refreshing it each year, as well as trying to facilitate different, it's a variety of different facilitative experiences that we bring to the table, whether it's leadership development, integration efforts with the strategic plan, goal planning and goal setting, some team stuff, right? So we try to kind of build a lot of that into the ongoing process so that they are successful. Long time ago, I stopped selling strategic planning as an endpoint, where it used to be, here's your strategic plan, and then they did nothing with it, right? And so really building ourselves in as part of how they're going to keep it going, because they just don't if they don't build that in.
Hands-on,
right?
Hands-on.
Yeah. So I think building yourself in as a real necessary element to keeping it going for them has been really helpful for long-term client engagements. We also really sell ourselves as partners. We want to be a one-source solution. And that's kind of why that mid-market is our perfect sweet spot, because you go a lot bigger than that. You have a lot of different consulting solutions, a lot of different Band-Aids going on. Not that that stuff's not great, but it's not necessarily helping the organization achieve their goals in a different way overall. And we really work hard to make sure that employees at every level see themselves as a part of how the business makes money. And when employees feel that connection, they're much more invested in the success of the company, but also in their role, right? And so we're all here to make money for this business. And we want to be human, and we want to have all of these great perks about being human at work. And that's really important, the culture, all those softer parts. But at the end of the day, if we don't make money, we don't have jobs, right? So it's kind of, how do you keep both of those things alive? And you do that through consistency. And I think having that external consulting partner is really critical to being successful, because when you're only relying on your internal mechanisms, it gets diluted over time, and you have less of a voice or less of a solution, or overstretched and overburdened, and they can't really do what they need to do to be successful in all of these different ways. So that's kind of how we build that longer term
The business of
relationship.
consulting is very challenging, for sure. And is there any areas maybe that you're stuck right now that you're trying to overcome?
With clients or with my own business?
With your business?
With my business, I think, like I said, is growing beyond our own network. So we're really focused on that going forward, broadening our exposure and that one-to-one connection, but in a much larger, broader way. So I've put myself in the sales role. My whole job is sales now, and I can't say it's great. I can't say it's bad, but it is what it is, right? It's a new way of looking at my role and the world that we're growing into. I know most people would say AI. I don't personally see that as a challenge. I think it's shaking things up. I think there's a long runway. I think it will really change a lot of things in our future. But at the end of the day, I'm not worried about it. It's still people and business.
Mm-hmm.
So unless we're literally killing off civilization, which may be a possibility, but I'm not gonna believe in that, right? So I think we're all gonna still exist. And so there's still gonna be need for everything that we do, because it's really connecting the humans with the processes and the systems of how things are done. And that dynamic will always be at play, whether it's AI or something else. So I don't worry about that. I worry about how deeply we play there and get distracted. So I've always taken a really hard line on not getting distracted with the big news of the day, but you have to be read in enough to be relevant and to be able to help understand where your clients are at and what they're dealing with. But I would say we usually try to come in as the calming source of, let's take a breath here and really think hard and fast about what we're going to do with that and when's the right timing for it for us. And helping each company and each individual really recognize where they're at and making their own conscious choices about how to deal with it, as opposed to, my hair's on fire and I have to do everything right now,
Finally, as we look ahead, where do you see the biggest opportunity for leadership advisory and organizational effectiveness consulting over the next few years?
Yeah, same thing, humans. One of the things, you mentioned the horses, and one of our big differentiators and our really conscientious efforts is in our unique immersive experiences. So the horse experience is one of those, but we have a lot of different mechanisms for really taking people out of their everyday normal and helping them to play with and experience new ways of thinking and doing things, so that when they come out of whatever our goal was, even if it's a strategic plan, right? There's a process for that, and there's a way that everybody does it. A lot of white sheets and whiteboards and all that stuff, right? But we want to have people really immersively experience how to think differently together, so that when they go back, they're actually thinking and doing things differently. They're not just going back to the way things were. And so I think that that's going to be a really big thing going forward, because people need to get out of the workplace. We've had this evolution of working from home, hybrid, maybe everybody's back at work. Maybe that's going to get shut down again. I don't know, right? But at the end of the day, we need to connect and be together and experience things together. And I think people are really craving that. We're seeing that in a lot of ways. The number of retreats that are out there is ridiculous, but I think being able to offer that unique blend of how do you get people to really connect together and solve problems together. And it's not happening in their everyday work in the way that it used to all the time. So it's on us, I think, to be really creative about that, bring those solutions into the environment in a way that hasn't been done before.
Well, certainly,
And leveraging AI
leadership
through all of that.
Extremely creative.
100%, yeah. Yeah, it's exhausting, right? It's why half the people are like, I don't want to do it anymore.
If people want to find you and learn more about you and your business, where should they go?
Sure. Our website is energizeleadership.com. We're on LinkedIn. Energize Leadership is on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, Kat Rippy. My email is kat@energizeleadership.com. So any of those outlets would be great. This podcast. There you go.
There you go. Great. Well, we're going to put all the links in the description. Kat, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders. We really appreciate it. You're a fascinating individual.
Thanks, John. Really appreciate it. It's been great.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.